Okay, excellent. Great. Okay, thanks for the intro, Tim. All right, so let me explain what that chat was to those who don't know. Right, when we did our introductions last week, I said I would come back and do the last set of 4 introductions, and then I let you guys go. So Nicole, Robin, Scott, and Tim never had the opportunity to give an introduction. So I had them email me one, and it's in the chat. So you can kind of take a look at their introduction. Okay, excellent. All right, we will get started in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, okay. All right, attendance is completed, and let's get started. All right, first of all, does anyone have any questions on anything? Any questions before we? All right, okay, going once, going twice. All right, let's get moving. Oh, let me just quick get Angel. All right, and Crystal. All right. All right. Hello. Okay. All right. So we're going to be talking about the difference between strategy, right, strategic thinking, and marketing, and then the actual components of a marketing plan. So this week again is kind of a little segue. You know, not a tremendous amount of new material. But next week, then we'll be hopping to 2 chapters a week. So still a little walk into the semester, and then we'll be hitting the ground full and running next week, because not only do we have 2 chapters of material, but then we also have a quiz that's going to come out next week as well. Okay, so let's get to it. We'll stop and do a little bit of group work tonight as well, look at a few videos. So I always like to recap what we talked about, just because it's good to help us recall things, right? We don't remember everything that we've, gone through, everything we've read, everything we've heard. So the more we see it, the more we read it, the more we hear it, the more we'll retain. So marketing, that was part of the homework questions, kind of the introductory homework, to make sure that we're all looking at the same calendar, make sure we understand how the calendar is set up, and that everyone took a look at the lecture notes. So for those who weren't here for lecture, making sure that all of that's been done. Right, so we have our definition of marketing, and we are going to focus a lot on that marketing mix, right? Our 4 P's: product, price, promotion, and place. We're going to go through a lot of that again today as part of our strategy. So we set the premise last week as we looked at how things have changed, right? Even as something as simple as water, how because we are more and more globalized, technology has allowed for fast communication. So we've got this super fast marketing now. We've got this ability to communicate ability to come up with different products. We've got a lot of globalization that shifts our trends and makes trends go faster. So marketing has to be aware of all of that. We call that the external market, and we're going to go over that today. One of the foundations of marketing is when we are looking at the product, right? Product, price, promotion, place. When we're looking at the product, it is in essence filling a need. So if we looked at Pepsi, one of Pepsi's business units is Frito-Lay. So what needs or wants are fulfilled by the products that Frito-Lay produces? What would you say? Okay, so think of the product. So what does Frito-Lay produce? Let me backtrack. Yeah. So they produce snacks and food, right? Chips, those types of things. All right, so what need do those items fill? Why do we eat items from Frito-Lay if you do? Hunger? Yeah. Is it just, yeah, sometimes it's not even just that basic need of hunger. That could be, kind of like Angela says, yeah, sometimes it's just, you know, I want something salty, or I want something sweet, or, you know, whatever it might be. Yeah, sometimes you're right, Scott, it's just because. Sometimes it's stress. I tend to be one. Yeah, so like Ian's saying, maybe it's events, right? So we're having an event, so it's filling the need of us bringing something, convenience. So we want to make sure and understand the whole picture, that we're not just looking as, okay, Frito-Lay sells chips. Understanding all of the needs, or what we call benefits as well, by the product will help us. Right? So one of the ways that we can help expand that thought process is looking at like two of the brands, right? So Frito-Lay has lots of brands: Cheetos, Doritos, Lay's, right? So one of their product lines is Bare, B-A-R-E. Are you guys familiar with that brand name? Bare snack food. So here's one of the nice things, right? So open up a tab. In fact, you might want to open up a couple of tabs. So if there's something like this, you can just quick open up a tab and Google, and, you know, put in Bare snacks, B-A-R-E snacks, or Bare Frito-Lay, and you're going to get a picture of it. So if that's not something that you're familiar with, just, you know, off the top of your head, sometimes seeing it will help to bring it to mind, because it's a pretty, it's known. So any of you guys who didn't know what it was before, after seeing it, is like, oh yeah, I've kind of seen that before. Okay. If not, spend a minute, you know. So what is the difference? You know, how does the product Bare differ from like Cheetos? What's the differentiation between Bare? Yeah, healthier, no preservatives, health oriented, excellent, right? So it's yeah, it's a healthier option, right? So the fact that Frito-Lay is taking a look and expanding its product lines to grasp some of the trends that are occurring tells us that they're doing their marketing right? That's what Frito-Lay should be doing, because we know that some of the traditional snacks, the Doritos, the Cheetos, and all of that, aren't as appealing to the general market as they would have been maybe 20 years ago. So in order for them to continue to keep sales and grow, they're going to have to expand that product line to, again, appeal to changes within that environment, within the target market. Okay, so marketing strategy, right, should fit into a company's overall strategy. So for example, if I'm looking at Pepsi, right? So Pepsi is the main company, right? So we've got Pepsi up here. And then, so as part of this corporate called PepsiCo, we have Pepsi drinks, right? So we have our Pepsi drinks. We have Frito-Lay, right? So under these, the drinks category, Frito-Lay, does anyone Do any of you guys know that Pepsi at one time owned Taco Bell and Pizza Hut? Any of you guys ever heard that? Yeah, at one time, Pepsi owned Taco Bell and it was Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and I think Kentucky Fried Chicken. I think it was those three: Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Right, so that was under their corporate umbrella. So we've got drinks, we've got snacks, and then now we've got these fast food restaurants, and that was all under Pepsi. We call these strategic business units, SBUs, underneath that umbrella. Yeah, I think they sold it. Oh gosh, I can't even remember who they sold it. It was quite some time ago. And they bought it as part of their corporate strategy. So when we look at a company's corporate strategy, that is all of the things that are going on with all of these different businesses, right? So Pepsi and Frito-Lay doesn't necessarily correspond with Pepsi, right? When they owned the restaurants, it didn't necessarily correspond with Frito-Lay. They were kind of separate businesses, all owned by the same corporation. Now, marketing strategy happens on a big side and a little side. So marketing strategy happens on this corporate side. And that marketing strategy kind of fits in, it supplements the company's corporate strategy. And then all of these business units have their own marketing strategy as well. That's what we call kind of the finer details. So Frito-Lay is going to have a market strategy. Quaker is going to have a market strategy. Tropicana is going to have a market strategy, right? So they're going to all have marketing strategies that are going to pertain to their product line. That's where we focus on, right? So we're not going to focus on the big picture. We're kind of focusing on, okay, what's the marketing strategy for PepsiCo drinks? What's the marketing strategy for Frito-Lay? What's the marketing strategy for Ford, or whatever it might be, right? So when we look at our marketing strategy, we look at three ways. We identify that target market. We're going to go into more detail on how we get to that target market, right? Once we have that target market, we figure out the best way to reach that market. That's our marketing mix, 4 Ps, and then our segmenting, targeting, positioning happens. And that is our plan. How do we continue to build what we call sustainable competitive advantage? So what is sustainable competitive advantage? Okay. Competitive advantage is anything that you do better than your competitors over the long term. And that's why it's sustainable, right? So it's a long-term view. It's not like, okay, I did really well this quarter, so it's competitive advantage. No, it's long-term, and it serves as the foundation for our strategy. So what is sustainable competitive advantage? Those things that I do better than the competition over the long term, and helps me to figure out how I'm best to grow, the foundation for strategy. There's 4 broad market strategies that will help us, okay, to bring this about. Customer excellence, location excellence, product excellence, and operational excellence. Okay. So if you think of a brand that you're loyal to, right? Right. There may be many brands you're not loyal to, but most of us usually have at least a couple of brands that we're pretty loyal to, right? So if we have what we call brand preference or brand insistence, meaning I will only buy, a Ford truck. I will only buy, whatever it might be, right? I like Coke over Pepsi, right? So I will always choose Coke over Pepsi, or vice versa. If you think of a brand that you're loyal to, can you kind of say, okay, well, I'm really loyal because the product is really super, and it doesn't compare, in my opinion, my preference, right? That would be product excellence. Maybe you're really loyal because it just fits within your schedule, right? So maybe you like going to a specific pet store because it's right where it needs to be, or a grocery store, right where you want it to be. It's in your sphere of reference, and that's it. So, you're loyal to that grocery store. That might be locational excellence. It might be that they have really great customer service, right? They're that customer excellence component. Or they're just at a very good price. And usually when you have operational excellence, you're super efficient, and then that brings high value through the option of lower pricing. Okay, here's a couple of examples of what we might consider a company that has customer excellence. These will tend to be some of your higher brands like your Rolex, but even a company like Zappos has customer excellence. They're known for their customer service. Anyone have another example of what would be a company that would be considered having customer excellence? Amazon, yeah, that's a great example, right? Now we can also use Amazon as an example of a company that has operational excellence, right? Operational excellence. So Amazon has to be operationally effective, right? They have to have a strong supply chain, right? So they have to be very efficient, right? If they're not moving very efficiently on the operation side, on the supply chain side, right, they're going to have a problem, because part of their business model is quick, right? We've got prime shipping, 1 day or 2 day. So that is a high efficiency. So here's the deal, right? Amazon can be here and it can be here. It doesn't have to be, you can only have one, but you typically would not be all four, right? So you can emphasize a couple of these, but it would really be difficult to say a company has all excellence in all four areas, because resources just don't typically work that way, right? Product excellence, right? Yeah, that would be like Apple, your iPhone, Toyota. Location excellence, Walmart is really good at picking out locations, and that was part of their competency decades ago when they figured out that they wanted to be, yeah, Quick Trip would be another one. Those are another example. Starbucks, yes, great examples. Right now, Amazon actually doesn't really have a physical location where you go, but they can have location excellence because of their broad reach in that operational area. You know, they get you what you want when you want it, which is really the need that location is fulfilling. Yeah, McDonald's, Subway, those are all great examples. Right, so these are just a kind of a broad picture look of our overall broad marketing strategy. Now in this class, we are not going to actually complete a marketing plan. If you guys go on for your master's and go into graduate level marketing, then we actually complete a marketing plan from start to finish. But in our case, we're going to look at it. We're going to focus on some of the big areas, but keep a broader look and less of a paper type overview. So a marketing plan is just like it sounds. It's a written document, right? So a marketing plan is typically, anywhere from, a simple marketing plan could maybe be 8, 9, 10 pages to, a company that's, like an Amazon probably has a marketing plan that's, 60 pages because there's a lot to go over. So it's a written document, and we're going to go through all of the steps that they do in a marketing plan as part of lecture. The difference between a marketing plan and a business plan is a business plan is even more, right? So the marketing plan supports an overall business plan. A business plan will look into more of the financial components of the overall company, So again, it's taking that big picture corporate look is the business plan. Marketing plan fits into that. When we put together a marketing plan, there's a tremendous amount of research that goes into it, which is why we don't necessarily do it here, because it's hours and hours and hours of research. And even though we spend all that time researching, we have to be flexible because it's going to probably change and change quickly. If you even just think and step back, right? So step back 3 years ago, right? 2020. If you were a company, even just 3 years ago, and you're putting together your marketing plan, right before COVID, do you think anything in that marketing plan, or do you think much of that marketing plan was accurate for 2020, 2021, and even into 2022? No, right? Yeah, a lot has changed, and a lot has changed very quickly. Yeah, so we know that we have to be flexible. There are things that are going to happen that we are going to have to learn to adjust. And the one benefit of something like COVID hitting is it made us very agile, and it kind of forced us to take a look and open our eyes and be very much more attuned to some of the differences that are happening in the external environment and come up with plans on how to deal with that. So we've got to think ahead, and we've got to update regularly, and we've got to make sure that we're communicating. So we've got that whole creative component, and we're going to use some of your creativity today as well. So this is what our marketing plan looks like. We've got 5 steps. We start out with a mission, right? And we're going to go into this in more detail. We start out with a mission. What do we want to accomplish? What's our goal? From there, we go into what we call a situation analysis, and it is just like it's down. What is the situation? What's going on outside the company? What's going on inside the company? Have any of you ever put together or worked on a SWOT? Have you guys put together or worked on a SWOT a long time ago? Yep. All right, we're going to go through some of that today. Okay, I'm just double checking, making sure I've got everyone for attendance. Yeah, we're going to get some hands-on work with that today. Yeah, it's projects and classes, right? It's always different in class than it is in real life. Those of you who've been in business, sometimes it can be a very painstaking process depending on the internal. Right, so this is what we call the planning phase. Step 3, we identify our opportunities, and right, we talked about our STP, segmenting, targeting, positioning, a little bit last week. Once we identify those opportunities, we put together how we're going to do it, right? So we put together that plan, we implement that plan, and then just like anything, we see what happens. We evaluate performance, and we adapt as we need to. So we've got a planning, an implementation, and then what we call our control phase. So that's the crux. So step 1 of our marketing plan, we define the mission and objectives. Mission statement, right? Broad description typically. Now, I do want to say that the mission statement doesn't necessarily need to be titled mission statement, right? So if you're looking into the company that you chose for your homework, right? So you, and you're like, okay, well, what's the mission statement? Because that's part of homework for today. Okay, what's their mission statement? Well, it may not actually say mission statement in their verbiage. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So really, if it's not titled that, Just, is it saying what the company wants to accomplish and how they plan to accomplish, right? Why are they there? What's the company there for? What do they provide? What do they do? Right. So it will help to, if we take a look at, what type of business are we in? What type of objectives, or how are we going to accomplish it? Right. So if it's not titled mission statement, it's okay, as long as they're communicating effectively, again, any of these three components, right? That broad description. So let me ask you this. If you, do you guys know the mission statement for the company that you work for now, or a company that you worked for in the past? Yeah, and it's okay if you don't know it word for word. Now, let me ask you this. How did you find out what the mission statement was? How did the company communicate to you as an employee what the mission was? And if someone wants to talk, they can talk. You don't have to only chat. Someone wants to, okay, on the intranet. Yeah. So typically you're right. It's in the handbook a lot of times. Oh, on your business cards, posted around. Okay. Yeah. Good for you guys. Because a lot of times you go through, especially when, you're going through a bunch of material, and it's like, okay, you're kind of just signing off on the employee handbook saying, yep, I read it, right? So yeah. Why do you think it is important and necessary in today's world for a company to try to communicate to everyone in the organization what the mission statement or the business mission is, and how they plan to accomplish it? Why do you think that companies go to all that work? It defines you're right. It keeps everyone on track. The one nice thing when it's known throughout the company, just as like you said, if you're an employee and you know what the company wants to accomplish, right, then we take steps to accomplish it, right? It's just a natural psychological component to the vast majority of people. Is if there is a goal that is put in front of you and you buy into that goal, right? So you align yourself with that goal, well, then you're going to take action to produce positive steps towards achieving that goal, right? It's in our head. So the more that a company can get everyone on board like that, get everyone aligned with what they want to accomplish, the more that employees are going to help to accomplish, the more productive they're going to be in achieving those objectives. Right? Now, let me ask you this. Have any of you worked for a company that may have had a mission, stated mission, stated objectives, but it was really not part of the culture, right? It looked good. It might have looked good on paper, but it wasn't really what, yeah. Good for you, Scott, because you're like, yeah, typically it is not unusual that a company will put together a mission statement, they'll put together policies, that sound good, right? Yes, Jade.
Just add in, so I work at a technical college, and I'm lucky I get to serve on an advisory board where we're actually looking at our mission statement and vision and everything else like that and saying, does this still represent what we want, what we are doing, and how we're doing it? So it's always that active process of, yes, it's our mission statement, but is it still our mission?
Yes, that's that's an excellent example. And I mean, one of the, like I said, you guys know, how has Education, secondary education changed in the last 10 years, right? I mean, it's in a fast change, as far as, yeah, so that's a great point, being aware of how things are changing and saying, you know what, you're right. Maybe this doesn't quite apply as much as it did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Yeah, so great example. So yeah, kind of like saying, you have to go back and sometimes we have to revise this. Now, how many people, if you don't mind my asking, how many people are on like your advisory board, Jade?
I want to say we've got probably like 30, 20 to 30.
Oh, Jade. Okay, so it's big. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
it's going to
it's
be a process.
yeah, and so we cover a huge geographic region of Wisconsin. So we grabbed people from all of our campus locations as well as all of our departments. So we're trying to get as much of a mixed bag as we could.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard, right? I mean, it's hard when you've got a really broad look, kind of like, even though it's a technical college, I mean, it gives you a good glimpse of how complex strategy can be for companies like a Pepsi, right? Because you're right, they've got to take a broad mix as well. You guys are having to do the same thing as Pepsi does, right? You've got a lot of different markets, a different look, and yeah, trying to get 30 people to do anything is a major task. So that is Fortune 500 worthy. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing. Right. So again, that's going to be part of the homework for this week. Here's an example of PepsiCo's mission, right? So again, looking at that big view, I'm going to let you guys kind of read that. I'm going to look at Crystal's. So when you asked them to reevaluate and find out what the goals were, how was that received? Because a lot of times it isn't received really well when we do that. Is it not very well? Yeah, that's not unusual. Not saying, I mean, you're in the right. So yeah, sometimes, right, like I said, business is hard, and especially because it is changing so fast, it is hard to adapt sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, it does. And that's why a lot of our corporate governance, like our boards, do have outside and inside sources, because sometimes it helps to have someone on the outside kind of coming in that doesn't have preconceived notions. There's benefits to having internal as well, because that's who really knows. Yeah, yeah. So it's good to have a mix of the two typically. Right, so again, so this is an example of PepsiCo's mission, right? So create more smiles with every sip and every bite. So very clean, very straightforward, easy to remember. And then they kind of go into a little bit of detail, so this is for consumers, for customers, for associates, for our planet, looking at that big social responsibility component, like we're going to talk about next week in chapter 4. As part of marketing. So again, it doesn't, in this case, they did label it, our mission, but it may not be, right? So here is an example of Gatorade, right? So Gatorade is a brand that is owned by Pepsi, right? So Gatorade's owned by Pepsi, and like they don't have, like if you go to their website, I didn't find much, but I found it actually, they had posted it on Indeed, and that's why I've taken the clip from Indeed, but it's Gatorade, and it kind of goes into, here's about our company, right? And they provide sports performance innovation designed to meet, and you can read it. So it gives a little paragraph that says, okay, it's not specifically saying mission, but it says, here's what we do, here's what we're about, here's what our objectives are. So this about information helps to explain their purpose and what they're there for. So again, sometimes it's unusual sources or places that we might find information from our perspective. So step 2 is a situation analysis And a SWOT is a tool, right? So a SWOT is just one tool to conduct a situation analysis, and that's the tool we're going to use. And here's where I'm going to kind of let you guys talk a little bit, discuss a little bit, instead of me just having a monologue. So let me kind of explain this little chart, because I like to use charts. I'm a chart kind of person. What's going on here is I just labeled some potential strengths or weaknesses, right? So if we look at marketing, we can look at reputation, right? That's a positive or negative. Market share, this would be found like in your finance area. Customer satisfaction, customer retention. So a lot of this we're not going to know by the outside looking in. But if you worked for a company like Pepsi, you would know, right? You would know we have X amount of market share. We have a, X amount of customer retention or buyback again. What are we perceived in terms of product quality, service quality, pricing, distribution, promotion, sales force, right? So this is just a breakdown. Sometimes it applies to the company, sometimes not so much. Right? So we have more of these, right? So that's just marketing. Here's one I did for finance. Here's one I did for organization. So if we look at like reputation for Pepsi, right? We can say, okay, do you think, and we're just going to use our perception because we're not going to spend the time to research this. So if I said from a reputation standpoint, do you think that's a major strength, a minor strength, or do you think it is a minor or major weakness? So first of all, do you think it's a strength or a weakness? If you had to guess, would you say that reputation for Pepsi is a strength or a weakness to them? Yeah, I would tend to agree with you guys, right? Everyone knows Pepsi, and it's not, even though you might not like Pepsi, it doesn't have like a negative, total negative connotation. So then you'd say, okay, well, is that like a major strength or a minor strength? And again, what I do want to caution you on is when you're doing a SWOT, to take a kind of a step back and don't just use what you think about the company or the product, right? So try to take a look at it from the general market viewpoint, right? So if you went out and talked to 1,000 people and took a survey, what would be the overall consensus of those 1,000 people, right? So not what you personally think, try to step back. So if you had to say it's a major or minor, what would you guys vote on? What would you think that most people would say in terms of reputation? Major, okay. So let's see, 1, 2, we're going to take the majority and we're going to click major. So one of these 4 boxes are checked. And then we kind of come over and say, okay, well, if we look at, again, the general market, how important is it to have a major or a minor strength? Is it really important? Is it medium important or low important? So yeah, in this case, because again, it is a highly branded product. So like you can't, people know what they're getting when they get Pepsi, right? For the most part, it's kind of like McDonald's. You may or may not like it, but the fact that there's a consistency there means it's highly important to have that strong reputation. So they're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of resources to protect that reputation. Okay, so here's what I would like you guys to do. Okay, I'm going to break you into 3 groups. Right. So first of all, I would like you to download this part of the slide, because once I put you into a group, you're not going to be able to see this. So Do you know how to download this from right now, from right here? If you kind of look up to this corner, like there's a T up in the right-hand corner. I know I can't point to it, unfortunately, but if you kind of look up into this corner, like right over here, right, there's a pencil, and then there's a T within a box, and then there's a diagonal line, and then there's a box with an arrow going down. That box with the arrow going down, if you click that, it's going to download the entire lecture to your laptop or desktop, right? You're going to want to do that because you're going to want to go to this slide as part of your group, or you're not going to know what's going on, right? So everyone, can you give me, here's the deal, right? Can you give me a yes if you have the download? So, excellent. All right. Okay. So here's what's going to happen. All I want you to do is go through this first sheet. And I know we are not experts on this. I totally get that. We're not experts, but just kind of get a group consensus, right? So we're going to put you in 3 groups, to 3 breakout groups. And I want you to elect one person that's going to be your spokesperson, right? So elect one person that's going to be able to talk if I have a question. I may or may not have a question, or that's going to kind of tally everything that your group thinks, right? So group 1 is got 5 members. Group 2 has 4, and group 3 has 4. So group 1 is going to be Angel, Chong, Crystal, Heather, and then one more that I can't see. Group 2 is going to be Angela, Haley, Jade, and Timothy. And group 3 is Chris, Ian, Nicole, and Robin. Okay, so those are going to be the groups. I'm going to put you in the group, and I'm not going to give you a ton of time because I don't want you to research it. We're going to come back and we're going to do this several more times. So I'm only going to give you 5 minutes. That's it. No, I'll give you 7 minutes.
Are we still sticking with Pepsi?
Nope, I'm going to change it to Starbucks. Right,
Starbucks,
so
got it.
Yes, so you're going to do this for Starbucks. Again, just general consensus. Don't overthink. There's no right or wrong. I don't have the answers for this. It's just an exercise to get us used to this. So 6:47, mark your clocks. At 6:47, I'm going to bring you back, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay, so elect someone, fill out the grid as much as you can in 6 minutes, and then I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, off you go. All right, you're coming back. Hopefully there's no, everyone coming back.
That was quicker than we thought.
I know. It was super quick, right? 6 minutes sounds like a lot, but that was like 25 seconds per item, right? So, yeah, I did not give you much time. That's all right. The whole point was to, now, did anyone get through all of them?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, yeah.
If
It was.
if I make it up as I go, we got through it. Sure.
Yeah, 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 right.
We made like some X's, yeah.
Yeah, like 6 minutes sounded like a lot of time, but when you actually get into it, it's like, okay, yeah, right. So yeah, Robin's like they got 3 done. Okay, no worries. Again, it was an exercise in number 1. That's our first group session. Now, has anyone, or let me ask, was that the first time anyone here has been put in a group scenario? Or okay, okay. So, yeah, so if you've never gone into a group chat room like that, there's your first experience. It was only 6 minutes. Yeah, sometimes it gets to be a little bit tricky. Like I can see Angela here. Sometimes it goes out and in a little bit. And if your connection isn't the strongest, sometimes it'll kind of kick you out and then you have to come back in. So there's a little idiosyncrasy. So we're going to do a couple more tonight, but then that will probably be it. Let me ask you this. Do you guys know that you can, do you guys, hold on, I'm just going to mute you guys so I don't get any feedback for right now. Do you guys know that you can mark up the whiteboard here? Mark up that you can participate. So if I said, okay, so let's do this, right? If I said, yeah, whoever did, now here's the deal. I don't know who just did that. I can just see it, but I can't, the technology isn't there that can say, oh, okay, he really did the smiley face, someone did the check mark, right? Now, if you come over to the corner, right? If you go to the corner, where's my corner? Right? So, if you click on that text, you can also change your color, right? Okay. Yeah. Now, if you are, in this case, you're using the drawing, right? But you can also type, right? So if you click on that T with the box and put it on the page anywhere, you can type. I'm doing it right there, right? So I just typed in marketing with that, and I did it in red because you can pull it down and you can change colors, right? So I might say, okay, group 1, it mark in red, group 2 mark in blue, group 3 mark in purple, right? So if it mark in red, group 2 mark in blue, group 3 mark in purple, right? So or type in a word, right? So one of the nice things is also, like right now, I'm just going to clear it all out. Boom, done, right? So in a situation like this, whoever your group person is, as far as your spokesperson, I might say, okay, each of you guys in a group can mark up what you guys thought, right? So, group, and it doesn't matter. You can either exit or you can type it. So if you go to the pencil, right, you can go to the drawing and you can say, okay, I thought that, it was reputation for Starbucks is here. And group 2, maybe you agree, right? And you do the same thing. But we can all do it at one time. So it's kind of makes it a little bit more efficient. And does everyone see how you can change the color? Right? So if I said group 1, okay, group 1, that was Angel and them. Okay, so group 1, I want you to mark in blue. Group 2, I want you to mark in red. And group 3, I want you to mark in green, right? So we have blue, red, and green. And whatever you came up with, just kind of X there. Scott, you must have been group 1. You must have been number 5 on group 1, Scott. Yeah. So, okay. So you could just, however far you got, just mark where you are, where you thought. And yeah, and it's okay to kind of, blur the lines, kind of go in between. I don't care. Again, the whole point is, as we get more and more familiar with this, it does make it kind of fast moving on some of our group work. So we can kind of like, okay, there you go. There's the data analysis for what our group thought or our groups thought. And okay, so you know what, it looks like we're kind of for the most part on the same page, So a little bit of difference in terms of that customer satisfaction. Again, there's no right or wrong because we don't have the amount of information. We're not Starbucks. But partly we could take a look at and say, okay, if is Starbucks growing? If they're growing and they have a lot of customer retention, then it's likely that customer satisfaction is pretty high because customers are pretty fickle. They wouldn't keep coming back if they're not satisfied to some respect. But again, all right. So if I asked, yeah, so there we go. So there's marketing. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put you back in the group again, but this time I'm going to have you look at not marketing. I want you to look at just 2 areas of finance, right? Because again, we don't know. So I want you to assess the quality of the workforce, and the facilities. Okay, so those are the only 2 things I want you to talk about for finance in your group. And then as far as organization, I'm going to have you do all of it. Go ahead and take a look at all 4 components. So this one, and these. So those are the only 6 components you're going to kind of try and come up with an agreement as far as strength, weakness, and then importance level for Starbucks from what you know or what you can grasp, right? So this time I'm going to give you twice the amount of time per item, right? So I'm going to give you another 6 minutes, but you only have 6 things to think about, and we've already started the thought process. So 7 o'clock, I'm going to pull you back, and then we're going to do the last one as a big group, right? So I'm not going to put you in into a small group for opportunities and threats, right? So 7 o'clock, I'm going to return you. And let's see, hopefully, okay, so here's the deal. Here's one of the quirks of Blackboard. You're not going to get the same people in your group. It's going to flip your groups around. So you're going to have to re-elect someone to come up and do your X's and checks for this. So elect someone, again, to do your X's and checks. And that's it. All right, so see you at 7. Online students, I'm going to give you keyword number 1, and then you know that you've got 5 minutes that you can scoot ahead. So keyword number 1 is SWOT, right? So keyword number 1 is SWOT. Keyword number 2 will be coming later in lecture. You can go ahead and click ahead 5 minutes because it is group time. All right, coming back. Reconnecting. 7 o'clock already. Okay, everyone made it. Fantastic. Excellent. All right, let's take a look. Go ahead, group 1, group 2, group 3, whoever you are. So group 1, again, was blue. Group 2 is red. Group 3 is green, or something like that. If you don't get the color right, it's no big deal. But mark where you think you are. So group 1, group 2, group 3, where do you think facilities were? Strength or weakness? And how important is that? And if you don't know the color, I don't care. Just do any color, just because your group's all changed, right? So
Facilities.
yeah, facilities, perfect. And then workforce, and then you can continue going down and figure out, yeah, mark in everything. We'll take a look. So everyone, okay, so we're kind of in agreement on facilities. Quality of the workforce, just based on perception. Leadership, employees, oh, interesting. All right. Excellent work. Excellent work. Okay, so here's where I'm going to kind of throw one. I want you guys to think about this, right? I absolutely agree when you're saying that facilities are a major strength, right? They have a very welcoming type environment. And from a Starbucks perspective, their foundation is kind of what they call the 3 places, right? So you have work, you have home, and they want Starbucks to be what they call the 3rd place. So kind of that place where you come and you feel comfortable, you can hang out. So you can do work, you can do, study, you can hang out with friends, you can go and just, kind of hang out, have a cup of coffee. So they call it the 3rd place. And they've set up their facilities to kind of have it that way, right? So it's a welcoming type environment. Again, whether you like Starbucks or not, I think if most of us go into a Starbucks, find that they're not all the same, but it's all a similar type environment, right? So, and you mark that it's of high importance, okay? So, quality of the workforce. Okay, those who said minor strength, what were some of the comments as to why you don't think it was a major strength? So, the groups where is anyone willing to talk from your group, or is your spokesperson willing to talk for our green and red? Yes, Angela.
Well, we were talking about like the workforce, is that like they kind of they're trying to do more or join union, like
Okay, and
Starbucks.
yeah.
And so with joining and not saying anything bad about the union, it just kind of
Right.
says something about, how they are working together as a company.
Yes. I mean, yep. Because typically you're not going to join a union if you're a happy employee. If you feel that, right. I mean, so that you can see that there's some amount of undercurrent there for some reason or whatever it might be. Yep. Okay. Great point. Great point. All right. So I want you to kind of think of what you've talked about, and now let's talk about opportunities and threats, right? So our SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, are what we call internal, things that are going on internally. Opportunities and threats are external, right? So opportunities and threats. And these are just a few, again, that I've kind of outlined of big opportunities, big threats. I'm going to walk us through threats, and then I want us to kind of use some creative thinking on what we think might be an opportunity. So threats, new competition. So if I asked you, do you think new competition is a major, minor, or neutral threat? What do you guys think? And you can just chat in. What do you think? Major, minor, or neutral for competition? Okay. Majority is kind of minor or neutral. Okay, so I'll just kind of put us there. I'll put us in minor. Yeah, now that being said, is there new competition coming on board all the time for coffee shops? Yeah, so yeah, I would tend to move it from neutral to at least minor because it is an area that there's continually new competition coming on. Now, they have strong brand loyalty, they have a strong reputation, but all it takes is, a couple of shifts in that external environment. Like, for example, the trend towards going more local, right? So you guys, do you know what I mean when I say more local? Like the whole buy local type marketing, right? So, that's there and that's there. But yes, if all of a sudden that really started to really take off a little bit more, right? Yeah, your local cafes, if somehow the consumer mind shifted to some of that, yeah, then all of a sudden that would be a potential threat to Starbucks, because everyone knows there's 15,000, 16,000 Starbucks out there in the world, right? They're the antithesis of mom and pop shops, so local shops. So that's where the threat might come in, right? Substitute products for this, not so much. I guess a substitute product for like Starbucks would be maybe your coffee at home or your K-cups. That would be considered a substitute product for that. Internet competition, forward or backward integration. Let me explain what this is. So if you think on the supply chain for Starbucks, right? So Starbucks, you have your coffee beans that are coming from the farm, right? So you've got coffee coming from the coffee bean farms. It's transported, probably certain distributors or such, and then processed, and it comes to Starbucks. They take the coffee beans, make it into a drink, and then the drink goes out. Right? So that's our supply chain. So if we were going to work backward on the supply chain from Starbucks, what that means is Starbucks would potentially go back, meaning Starbucks would either start to own some of the distribution end of where the products are coming from, the transportation end, or the actual coffee farms, right? So does that make sense, what I'm saying, in terms of that backward integration, going backward on the supply chain, right? Yes, you're exactly right, Scott. It's like Quick Trip, right? So Quick Trip owns a lot of that supply chain. They have the gas stations, but they also own some of the dairies and the bakeries that supply the gas stations, right? So they're not just a gas station company. They own the products that are put into the convenience store. Again, would be a better term than gas station, right? Now going forward on the supply chain would be like going into like DoorDash and that, so how is the product going from the store to the consumer? Sometimes the consumer comes and buys it, but now we also have this relatively new concept of being able to deliver goods to the consumer as well, and that would be forward integration, right? So you can have forward integration with an alliance. You don't have to necessarily buy it, but you can, right? So Quick Trip has done that going on the backside. Trade barriers, M&A, merger and acquisitions, right? So if you would look at a threat for Starbucks in terms of merger and acquisitions, well, what if Dunkin' Donuts and Caribou Coffee decided to merge? Well, now we've got number 2 and number 3 in terms of market share excluding McDonald's. Actually, McDonald's is higher, but if all of a sudden they started to emerge. So that would be a potential threat because it's making them stronger. Alliances and joint ventures. So alliances is working together, where if all of a sudden Caribou Coffee and Dunkin' Donuts said, well, we're not going to technically merge our companies, but we're going to come up with a cooperative strategy where we're going to just agree to work together, kind of like code sharing with airlines, okay, that type of concept. A threat of declining demand, right? That would be an example of where Pepsi's at, right? There is a declining demand in carbonated soda beverages, right? Pepsi's in decline. It's not a growing market. Now, the growing market is in things like Gatorade and sports drinks and carbonated water, where they still have beverages. So as part of their overall strategy, they've taken on and acquired some of those types of lines to help combat our declining demand. New technology, the threat of losing market share, right? So that's what those things all mean. So let's take a look at opportunities, because opportunities is really going to be a lot of the basis of what our marketing plan is going to be, how we're going to grow. So new geographic market, new product lines. We're going to look at that a lot next week as part of what we call, or actually no, we're going to look at it a little bit later in terms of how we go about things. E-commerce, again, we have opportunities in forward and backward integration, merger and acquisitions. Okay, so if I said, okay, think of one opportunity of one of these areas, what do you think would be an opportunity for Starbucks that's out there? Any ideas?
I don't know if they already own their like bean farms and everything like that, but if they do that, I mean, I think traditionally bean farm, coffee farmers and everything like that are already underpaid and overworked and everything else, but that would be an opportunity with the
Yeah, I mean,
integration.
would. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly now, and part of it is, right, so they are also, they tend to be progressive on what we call the socially responsible side. So they would use it as part of their marketing, right? Kind of like how Chipotle, are you familiar with like Chipotle and how they talk about how, yeah, Chipotle, everything is always fresh and local if you can, organic if they can. But part of that socially, so they would use that as part of their marketing campaign. All right, so opportunities and new technologies. Do you know a specific technology? Anyone more knowledgeable in the coffee area than I am in terms of the actual internal workings? Is there like robotics? Anyone thinking about, were you thinking about robotics on technology? Yeah, absolutely. That's part of it. Yeah, robotics is becoming a big trend in many restaurants. Have you guys, any of you heard any of that kind of stuff or seen any of that kind of stuff? How robotics is starting to enter the fast casual type restaurant? Yeah. So the more automation, right? So typically the more automation, and that's part of how automation, what's driving automation is the problems getting quality labor, right? So when you can't get quality labor, we are really, really good as a society of coming up with ways to combat that. And one of the ways to combat that is to say, okay, you know what, we're going to figure out a way that we can have a machine do this. And then we are going to invest the capital, the finance, because it's very expensive to do that up front. But we're going to invest the capital to do it, and it will help us in the long run, right? That's part of our strategy, right? So yeah. Greenhouses to go coffee in the north. Yes. right? If we can do it energy efficiently. So what we do with step 3 is taking one of those opportunities and then say, okay, now how do we identify, how do we figure out a way to put this opportunity to benefit for us? Right now, we have a lot to go yet in lecture, so I'm not going to go a ton into this because we're going to kind of go into it a little bit more detail next week, but segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So segmenting, we take and put things into like groups. So for example, from a marketing perspective, even though all of you are different ages, different experiences, different geographical areas, different life, family stages, right? I can segment all of you into this group called college student, right? So college student would be a segment. All of you are in that like college segment, right? So what we do with segmentation is find these, I like to call them little bubbles, right? So here you guys are, you're a college segment, right? You have a commonality within all of you in that things that apply to those who are in college will apply to you. Now we can take that college segment and make it even a little bit more defined, because we can say you're not only going to college, but you're going to college as an adult. So you have some amount of life experience. You're not just, 18 or 19, coming from school, going right into the classroom, right? You have experience in the outer world and how things work. Some have more experience, some have less. But as a group, you have some experience out in that world. You've got a little bit of a niche within even that segment. And then we can segment even more by, okay, now we've got this, we can segment by age, we can segment by gender, we can segment by income level, family life cycle, all of that kind of stuff. So we have all these segments we divide into a group. So if we were to look at all those segments, then yeah, those are called demographics, right? So we're demographics, age, income, all of that. So we take these like things and we put them in these little pockets, and then we decide which of these is most likely to find value from our service. So if we're looking at Target, or if we're looking at Starbucks, right, what might be some segments that might find their product of the most value? So just in general, what might be people working out or working at home? People working out or working at home? Yeah, working out of the home, right? Because if you're working at home, you do your own coffee, right? Now, I mean, you can have it delivered to your house, but typically most people aren't going to do that, right? So there's a segment, people who are working outside of the home, right? Now, that might be a threat for, actually now thinking of it, that might be a threat for Starbucks, because are more people, is the availability of working from home increasing or decreasing? Is the availability of working out of the home increasing or decreasing? Or do you see it increasing or decreasing? Yeah, it's increasing. So that's kind of a threat to Starbucks. The fact that, okay, well, you know what, more and more people are working at home. That's part of our target market, are those who work outside the home. So understanding that that's a threat, they say, okay, well, what do we need to do? How do we need to adapt to make it that people leave their homes and still come to Starbucks? So what can we do to make it that we're part of that third space again, that isn't necessarily on your way to work? Yeah, there is a pushback against that, and I get that. It's never going to go away, though. It's just yes, Starbucks has done what is called product development, and we're going to take a look at that in a few slides. But they have diversified their product line by putting Starbucks out where you can buy it in the grocery store. So maybe that's part of the strategy that they use, is to say, okay, well, they're not going to come into the store, but we will get the store to them somehow. Yeah. So segmenting, dividing, and targeting, which are best for you, and then positioning is how do we best communicate to that group. Okay, so start segmenting, targeting, positioning. Here's, let's take a look, let's kind of go back to Pepsi a little bit and look at how we might evaluate opportunities using segmenting, targeting, and positioning. So in this case, I have segmented, I've kind of filled in some boxes here. I've segmented by age, right? So I'm looking at under 18, 18 to 29-year-olds, 30 to 49, and 50 to 64. I just made this up, right? So benefits sought. So under 18, if you're looking at purchasing a drink, right, the benefits sought might be, we're looking at sports related, right? So if you're under 18, you're going to drink because your electrolytes need replenishing, right? Maybe one of the benefits sought for 18 to 29 is the caffeine. One of the main benefits for 30 to 49 is having non-sugar options. And 50 to 64, habit or nostalgia. Again, I just kind of flip these out. Right? So we can have many others other than this. So what might be another benefit sought for under 18? What might be another example of a benefit sought for under 18? Peer pressure. Ah, interesting. Yeah, so peer pressure. Okay, so if we look at peer pressure as a benefit sought, right, what would be one of their products that would fit into there, right? So if we're looking at sports related, the product is going to be Gatorade. What might be the product or the trendy kind of thing that would be here then, if we're looking at the benefits sought for under 18? This might be a little bit controversial, right? Do any of you guys have or know? Oh, okay, an energy drink. Yeah. Now, I'm not so sure that energy drinks for under 18 are, a good idea, but I will tell you, my 16-year-old, like, if I need him to do something for me, all I have to do is say, okay, I will buy you a bubbler, and he will do it, right? So I might be stunting his growth, but if I want him to clean his room, a bubbler will do it. All right, caffeine, right? So if I'm 18 to 29-year-old and my benefit is, I just need a caffeine infusion. Maybe I don't like coffee. So I'm going to do Pepsi or Mountain Dew type brands. That's what's going to fit in with that. What might be another benefit sought for 18 to 29-year-olds? What might be another one?
All right, I give up on trying to spell it. Convenience.
Convenience. All right. Got it. Convenience. There we go. So what products might align? And maybe it's the same products, to be honest. But what might be another? Okay, that it's just that we want a convenient drink. What might be some other Pepsi brands that might fit in there? Convenient drink. Okay, so it might be, although we'll stick with that, the flavored ones. How about, actually, you know what? To be honest, the best one is going to still be your Pepsi and Mountain Dew, because they are by far the most popular. And so when we go to convenient, oh, that didn't fit. When we go to convenient, it would be, what are the brands that are around most often, right? So if you go to a vending machine, or if you go to a gas station, or if you go, right, I mean, your Pepsi and Mountain Dew are probably going to be your most well-known in terms of being there, right? So 30 to 49, benefits sought, non-sugar options. So that would be kind of like, if you're saying like your Pepsi Zero, all of that kind of stuff. 30 to 49, maybe caffeine is here. Are you right? Maybe healthier drinks. So the benefit sought is healthier options, right? And that would maybe be that is Mountain Dew Energizers healthier? Well, like your bubbly would be. Okay. Okay. So your like let's just say flavored water. Okay. That product would fit in there. Okay. Last thing we're going to do, what would be a habit or nostalgia? What would be a benefit? Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. What would be a habit or nostalgia brand that Pepsi might have? And what you're thinking is probably right. What's the oldest brand they have? Yeah, you're right. Oh, do they have a cream soda? Yeah, their root beer, the root beer, and just do they have a cream soda? Yeah, their root beer, the root beer, and just Pepsi's been around forever. Pepsi's been there around for a long time as well. So those brands would fit that. Yeah, and that's where some of the throwback, the throwback packaging might come into play. Okay. Now, 7:30, and I have been talking for a long time. So here's the deal. You already have the PowerPoint downloaded. So let's take a look at 2 ads, and we're going to do it back to back. Right. So there's an ad on 16, and then there's an ad on 17, slide 16 and slide 17. They're very quick, right? So I think 35 seconds and then 45 seconds, but the second one is really only 10 seconds because it kind of keeps repeating. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I want you to watch these 2 videos. You should be able to click on it right from your downloaded PowerPoint. Right? Is anyone able to not click through? Right? And so in case if you're not able to click through, here's the links. I'm going to give you 2 minutes as I do. Okay. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to watch them. Some might watch them a couple of times. All right. So 2 minutes, 7:30. 7:30. I'm going to start talking again. All right. So first of all, let me ask you, anyone here soccer fans or have kids or grandkids that are in soccer? So you're soccer fans, whether you want to be or not. Okay. Do any of you know who the people are in the first and second video? The soccer. Okay. Not a big soccer following. All right. My kids are in soccer, so whether I want to be or not, I know who Messi and Ronaldo and all of those are. Okay, you knew who they were, even though you're not fans, right? So the first one, Lionel Messi, big soccer, very well-known international soccer player. In fact, like when we go to social media, they are one of the most well-known social media people in the world. Is soccer, so that kind of gives you the global perspective. So what was the product that was in this particular ad? What was the product in the first ad? Pepsi, right? So ad for Pepsi using what we call a spokesperson. Pepsi's really big on using spokespeople. Coke is not, right? So yeah, Pepsi, big. Yeah, so is Pepsi Max the one with no sugar? It wasn't labeled, and that's because it's an international video as well. So from a packaging standpoint, a lot of the colors, shapes stay the same, but sometimes the wording's different international. So that's why a lot of times they won't have the actual wording on the can. So it's not defined to only one geographical area. Okay. Now in this case, there's nothing that's talking about price. So it's not like it's on sale, and not every advertising does. What it is this type of promotion or this type of ad, this type of promotion would then align with other promotions that are going on like within the store and the retail units. So it all kind of works together, but it's not like, there's something in there. Yeah, Pepsi's very, very big into using sports icons and like pop idol type icons as well. Okay, so how did the girl get the Pepsi? How was she able to get the Pepsi to give to Messi? Yeah, she ran over to the vending machine, right? Actually, the vending machine is a component of our place, right? The fact that you're in this huge crowd and all you need to do to get a Pepsi is to run over to a vending machine. It communicates what we call intensive distribution. You can get a Pepsi within 5 minutes, no matter where you are. Yeah, the convenience component to it, the fact that they have widespread distribution. So even though, like I said, people aren't going to necessarily pick it apart like we are, the whole mindset still comes in. Yeah, you know what? I want a Pepsi. Yeah, it's convenient. I can get it quickly. Right? So the whole component of this promotion isn't necessarily to say, okay, yeah, everyone needs a Pepsi because you're thirsty, right? It was just saying, you know what, if Lionel Messi, one of the greatest soccer players in the world, greatest of all time, I think is the title of the message. If he drinks Pepsi, well then, I want to drink Pepsi too. We see that all the time in marketing. Second one wasn't an official ad. It certainly was not an official ad by Coke. Was kind of surprised that maybe Pepsi wasn't trying to get it to be more popular. But what was going on in the second ad? I included it because I thought it was kind of funny. And yeah, so second ad, product placement gone wrong. Yeah, that is a PR nightmare if you are Coke, right? PR nightmare. And I would love to know the behind the scenes of what happened. Because if you're Coke, and you are a major sponsor for soccer, and something like that happens, even if you're Ronaldo, and again, one of the greatest players of all time, yeah, there's like a lot of negotiations and there's some legality involved in that as well. So it would be interesting to know if there was like a behind the scenes fine or something like that, because that thing's legal to the max on that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that wasn't official, but it's a great example of, number one, we are seeing a big trend away from sugar. It would be interesting to know if it was like, you know, sparkling water. I mean, really, Coke should have had Dasani there, in hindsight, and maybe have Coke and Dasani, a couple other brands besides just Coke. That might have been helpful if it was, he's going to change it out, at least change it out with a Coke brand of water. But I included it because it's a great example of how things can, go wrong. And, and I don't even know what dihydrogen monoxide is. My husband teaches, chemistry and physics. I do not. So I don't, it's dihydrogen monoxide. Oh, H2O, wouldn't it be hydrogen, 2-hydrogen monoxide? Bihydrogen is di 2? I thought bi was 2. Anyway, either way, H2O, you're right. It's good for you, and that's what he was saying. 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, yeah, H2O. All right. I'm going to let you read that. My throat is getting sore. I feel like I'm talking too much. Okay, here's the deal. We have 2 more slides to get through. Right, just 2 more. And then we've got it covered for tonight. Step 5. Right, so we talked about step 5. We take all that we've done and then we evaluate and make adjustments. One of the ways that we can look at this is called the Boston Consulting Group, right? So BCG is just the acronym for Boston Consulting Group, right? And the Boston Consulting Group, very well known for many, many decades, right? So they came up with this kind of neat little matrix. So the 2 sides are market share relative to the industry and market growth. So if I'm looking at my product portfolio, and let's just say I'm Pepsi, right? So if I'm Pepsi and there is low market growth, but I have relatively high market share, I would have a cash cow. So what might be an example of a brand that Pepsi has that might be a cash cow? Relatively high market share compared to the others, but a low market growth. Pepsi itself, yes, that is perfect. Pepsi's sitting down here. So it's called a cash cow because people already really know it well, right? That's why I've got relatively high market share. So I don't have to explain what Pepsi is. I really just need to spend resources on making people aware, creating some interest, that type of stuff. So cash cow. High market share and high growth rate would be like Gatorade, right? Gatorade, still the market leader. There's, Powerade, there's other energy, sports electrolyte type drinks, but still high market share, and it is a market that's growing, at least much more so than our sodas are. Okay, those are called stars. We like those. Low market share, but high growth rate. Low market share, but high growth rate. So let me first ask you this. If you're looking at beverages, what are the beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, that are growing the most? Okay, Diet Pepsi is going to be sitting, okay. Yeah, you like our sparkling waters, right? That's been, if you look at like the last 5 years, that's been, yeah. So your bubbler, your sparkling waters, right? So they have bubbly is their, Bubly, I think is how it's spelled. Bubbly is a brand of Pepsi. Okay. And I don't know where it is on market share for sure, because I couldn't get that, but let's just say that it's, kind of sitting right here. It's in a high growth arena, but, Bubbler probably still has one of the higher market shares, at least around here they do in Wisconsin. It's a Wisconsin brand. But so they're sitting here as a question mark. A dog is low market growth and then low market share. So these would be brands that are probably going to be either sold and sold off as part of the product portfolio, or potentially regenerated, revitalized. Go ahead.
Where would so Mountain Dew always comes out with limited time flavors. There's the Halloweens or the Christmases or the whatever that they punch out a new flavor for. Where do you think those would kind of fall in on? And they're probably, if they have a growth, it's very quick because it's limited, and the market share is probably limited too.
Okay, I'm just saying this is a perfect segue to our next slide. So what it is we would just take a look at the Mountain Dew brand just as is, not as the individual flavors. So like the Mountain Dew brand, very well known. So it's probably sitting like maybe a little bit higher in this area because they do have, they do tend to be more progressive on the product development. So it would still be a cash cow, and it would probably sit somewhere around here. And again, I could be wrong because I don't have privy to the internal information. But what Pepsi's doing in terms of coming out with those new flavors fairly often is what is called coming up with a new product for their existing market. So here's the last slide that we have and another viewpoint of how we approach things. So our two grids are, here's my product and here's my market. So if I want to grow using what's called a market penetration, I use my existing product in the existing market, meaning I really don't change much, right? So an iPhone's an iPhone for the most part, but Apple might communicate differently to now try to appeal to a little bit different parts of the market. So it might be that they're, once the older model's out, right, it's still there, it's still an existing product, and they're still going to the existing market, but they're trying to appeal to, let's upgrade, just coming out with that new model. Let's try to say, okay, maybe you need more than one iPhone. I don't know why you would, but, or bring that same model into, where your kid gets it or whatever. So you're not really changing things around like a Mountain Dew is doing, right? So Mountain Dew with, like Mountain Dew Thresh Apple, Mountain Dew Baja Blast, Mountain Dew, what's the purple one that they come out with for Halloween? I can't remember it, right? Those were new products to the existing market, right? So that is a complete new product that's coming on, right? Coke with coffee is what I used as an example on the slide, right? Have any of you guys ever had the Coke with coffee? The Diet Coke with coffee? It's diet, there's no sugar. Have any of you ever had Coke with coffee? It was actually really good. I love coffee, and I didn't think I would like it. They actually don't produce it anymore, but yeah, I loved it. I got one can. I'm kind of saving for emergencies, but because yeah, I can't find it anymore. It was a little pricey. You didn't like it? I liked it, but I couldn't drink a lot of it, but like I could drink like 1 can. So yeah, so new product for the existing market, right? Market development is taking the current product and going into a new market. So an example of this would be KFC here in the United States, and as part of their marketing strategy, they said, okay, well, we're going to now start to grow, and we're going to go into Europe, and we're going to go into Asia, right? Starbucks, same thing, right? Starbucks didn't change their product at all. They just started going into different geographic regions, current product into new markets. No, I do not. Chlorophyll Pez, that doesn't even sound good. Yeah, it is interesting. KFC is a big thing for Christmas in Japan. That's so funny. Like, who here likes like black licorice? Just wondering, who here likes black licorice? Does anyone like black licorice here? We just had this survey at the campground this weekend. You like it? No one? Yeah, I like black. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Pass. I mean, like I don't go out and buy it, but I can eat it. I don't eat sugar. Yeah, you guys are too funny. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty much very similar to the response at the campground this last weekend too. Like me and my cousin's husband was the only one that liked licorice. All right. So market development, current product, new market. Diversification, new product, new market. This is kind of the riskiest, right? Because you're going outside your comfort zone, right? This example, or an example of this would be Walmart's decision to purchase trucking firms, right? So Walmart went on that supply chain, right? So our supply chain, we've got our stores and we have our goods, and Walmart bought trucking company to bring it from the stores or the distribution center from the manufacturer to the distribution center to the store, right? So it is the riskiest because Walmart knows how to run stores really well, but that doesn't necessarily translate to being really good in transportation. It ended up working out very well for them. Same concepts would apply to Quick Trip, right? The fact that Quick Trip, owns dairies, that's a risky move because it's different to run a convenience store than to run a dairy. And, it doesn't always correlate. It's worked well for them too, all right? So that is our type of strategy, our four growth strategies. Here is the check yourself. These are always good because sometimes I'll pull from this for the quizzes or exams. The answers, if you go to the content area, right, and go to the slide with notes, all of the answers are on the slide with notes. So you can double check them. I'm not going to take the time to go through them because it's almost 8, and again, my throat is sore. But all of these are answered within our lecture. And last thing, right, here's our homework for today. So homework for our chapter 2 for the company that you chose, right? So again, last week I said choose a company, right? If you didn't do it, you're going to have to do it for this week, and make sure that, when you choose it, because that's the company you're going to use for the rest of this class, right? So that whatever company you chose, what's their mission, vision, little critique on it, and then outline their product mix. So any questions on homework, right? Submitted through Blackboard. Any questions on what we covered for tonight? Okay. Yes. And actually, Heather, I'm very glad that you said that. If you have chosen a company that's not really well known, if you can kind of just give me a heads up. So if it's not a publicly traded company, then give me a little heads up on it so I know what you're kind of talking about. although the mission statement will help me in that area. But what are the companies that you guys chose? Tell me what company you have if you've done it, and then I'll let you go. While you guys are typing in your company, online students, keyword number 2, online students, keyword number 2 is plan, Plan, right? Keyword number 2, if you want credit for listening to the lecture. Okay, so Quick Trip, Johnsonville. Okay, Crystal, you've got that. Warner, where you work, A group here. Okay, so fantastic. Looks great. All right, that's it. You guys are free to go. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be sales. You can still use the company that you work for. You just might have to adapt a little bit, Jade, right? So the product mix is really going to be more of a service mix, and you can adapt to make it work. We don't have to take the we don't have to be very always so by the book. We can look at the overall point of what we're trying to accomplish rather than following just the letter. All right, that's it. If you have no questions, you're free to go. We have had a hard almost 2 hours of lecture with no break, right? So you deserve it. All right, let me know if you have questions.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So I was trying to go back and look at the syllabus because I couldn't remember last week with those keywords that you gave us, and now I just heard you say tonight it's for
Okay.
the students online.
Yes. You don't.
Okay.
If you're here, you don't have to do that. Yeah. Right. So you guys that are here lecture, I usually I like to at the end of the night, like I'll go, in fact, I'm just going to go and I'm going to put your attendance, your grades in right away, because you've been here in lecture. Now, if I don't do it, don't freak out, because sometimes I do wait till the end of the week, but you're good. Your attendance is there. It's only if you're an online student who's listening to the recording that has to worry about anything with the keywords.
Okay, good.
You're totally good.
Oh my gosh.
Nope, you're totally good. Your criteria is met for attendance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for asking and checking in.
Yep. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too, Angela.